Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Steve Jerschley, and as Ashley said, I am the practice director for BI at Interdyne. And today I wanted to show you how you can use these tools to help your analysts as they go along. I have only a couple of slides, and then we'll get right into the tools after that. But today's webinar is going to consist of a little bit of a tour around the BI360 data warehouse. I wanted to show you some structure. I think it's important to see that so you can see how it works. Then we're going to look at the Solver BI360 reporting tool and show you how those dimensions and fact sets and measures look at on that tool. And then we're going to go into Power BI. We're going to show the data pull and how you see the exact same elements coming all the way down through Power BI that you see in the data warehouse and the reporting tool, and how these all fit together. And then we'll build out a couple of quick visualizations. I'll show you a couple of finished ones that we used in the that I built out using this data from the data warehouse, and then finally we'll have some questions and answers at the end. So a couple more slides here. One of the slides that I had showed here is a lot of times today with Power BI, we're out there trying to create, and here I've done this as well. I've tried to take data from various sources, which are called fact sets, and you're trying to merge those together and do mappings. And the more data you have, you kind of end up with these clusters like this, where you're mapping data and having things going multiple directions, and as you start to add more and more, it gets more and more complex. What I wanted to show you today is how your structure can be more like this, where you're having the dimensions, and that's what's down the middle, and how they link to your various fact sets or your data. And this allows you to then, any common elements that you have between various data sources, it makes it a lot easier for you to go ahead and put that data together. Just to show you a couple of examples here is a dashboard that was built out of Power BI using this technique, and also with the Solver tool you're able to go ahead and build the same types of reports, all with the same sort of data. So with that, those are my slides, and so I want to jump right now into the actual data warehouse here. I'm running this on my image here, but here's the Solver data warehouse. The nice part about this data warehouse is when you're looking at this, you're able to take this data, and end users are able to use this. A lot of times with custom data warehouses, you're not able to see the data as an analyst. Power users and Power analysts can come in here and see their data, and it actually helps them shortcut their pieces. What you're seeing here is dimensions, and all I wanted to show you in this section is if I go ahead and open the revenue section, you're going to see the various dimensions that are related to revenues. And you can see here that we have a customer and account. And if I open up the general ledger as well, you're going to see account here as well, in category and currency down here. The important piece is these are all the same dimensions. This account and this account aren't different. It's the same dimension. And as I jump down here, I'm going to next go to the administration tool here. And what I wanted to show and show you how this works, and this is the important piece here that allows you to help structure your data. I'm going into module schema. And what's important here is here's all the various dimensions, and here's all your various data sources up here. These data sources can be coming from your ERP systems. They can be coming from a source like ADP. They can be coming off the internet like Google Analytics. And they can also be coming from other systems like a project system, project source system, or CRM, or anything that sits outside of the ERP. And the important thing here is as this gets built out by the, as you're going along, you can see that everything, I'll raise this up here so you can see the choices you have. Unchecked means they're not enabled. The checkbox means they're enabled. And some of these, like scenario, period, which is also known as time, each of those sections here, this one's mandatory and these are enabled and not enabled. So with that, as you go through here, you can see how your data is related as an analyst. So you can come out here and say, okay, my revenues, I have this in all of these various categories. I have my revenue in the GL, I have my revenue in the revenue module, I have it with projects. The only thing I don't have it in here is with benchmarking. And if it was appropriate with that, you just come out here, you click the checkbox here if that data supports it. It now checks it, and you're able to go ahead and add that element to it. So with this, we are going to go ahead and carry this forward, looking now at the Solver reporting tool. And why this is important, if you remember what we just looked at the data warehouse, you can see each of these elements here that you can choose from. The general ledger, accounts payable. Move this down here a little bit so you can see that. Capital, payroll, they're all lined up along here. General ledger just happens to be in the same module piece, summary and detail, but all the rest of them have their own tabs, and you're able to add data here again from any source that you need to. The current version that's out there, version 5, allows you to now have 100 different data sources, and I'm going to call it true data sources, and then over 100 dimensions. So you're able to get quite a bit of data in here to use as an analyst. All right. So now we've looked at the Solver data tool. Here again underneath here, you'll take a look real quick. I'll expand this out. And you can see each one of the dimensions, how this sits in here. You have a dimension. Each dimension may have attributes. So this one has a tree, you can have roll-ups, the description, all of this is out here. And this will be available from the data warehouse, and you're able to take a look at that not only from the data warehouse, but when you're using Power BI and when you're using the Solver tool or the BI360 tool. And then anything with an amount here, like an amount or dollar signs out here, these are your measures. So that's about all I wanted to talk to you about with the BI360 reporting tool. Where I wanted to go next is we're going to go ahead and open up the Power BI portion of this and show you how this is all connected. So what I've already done, because it takes a couple minutes to load in the data, I've already preloaded the data, but let me show you how I get to it. We just won't do the data load. So I'm going to go ahead and do the get data. You can take a look here. You'll notice here that Microsoft allows multiple ways to go get the data, depending on where your source is. From Facebook, ODBC connectors, all different sorts. Today we're just going to use a simple SQL database pull. So I'm going to go ahead and hit connect, and I'm going to close this down, give myself a few more resources. As you all know, being on an image takes a little bit of resources. So the thing that you need to know here is you need to know the server name. With hopefully your group on your IT department has it named your server to look like something like mine is named here, and they make it extremely long and difficult to type in, but that's my server name. If you're a Power user, you probably know what this is right now. If you're not, then your IT department can help you with this, or it's a one-time setup, and then it will always reconnect to whatever your data is. So I'm going to leave the database piece open here, and I'm going to leave it at import, and we don't need any of the advanced options. I'm going to hit OK. Give that a second to connect. And once it connects, which it takes a second, we'll come up here and we'll see the server name, and we'll see each of the databases that are listed out there on that server. We are using the corporate demo, so we're going to go ahead and open that up. Now, here's where the power comes in the fact that you have this out there and you're utilizing the warehouse. You'll notice that each of these that start with a D, those are the dimensions I showed you. And the fact sets come across here that start with an F. And those were what we call the modules across the top. That's where your data sits. So we're going to go ahead and map what was common. And I'll show you how that looks right here in a second. We're going to go ahead and click on the category. We're going to go ahead and you notice it gives you a little preview here so you can see what your category is and make sure that the data is right that you want to pull before you pull it, currency. And we're going to go ahead today and we're going to use the revenue and we're going to use the accounts receivable module. The reason being is the customer is a real good thing to show between two various sources of data. The revenue here I actually pulled from a CRM data source, and the accounts receivable I actually pulled from a ERP data source. So with those two, we have very good data because they both have common ID numbers, but we'll go ahead and show you how we can use those to do a revenue and accounts receivable real quick. I also know, because I know my data, I know that the DIM1 was relabeled to be department, and then I'm going to go ahead down here and do my time period, and then I'm also going to choose entity, and I'm also going to choose scenario. I'm going to roll down here, and I'm going to pick my accounts receivable because that's where my AR data is. And I'm going to pick the RV because that's my revenue. All right, so all I have to do now that I have this all done is I'm going to hit load. Because this is takes a couple minutes to go ahead and load, I'm going to skip that piece of it, and I preloaded this for you. But now that you've done this far, normally I'd hit load, you'd wait a few minutes, and you'd come up to this screen and you'd see exactly what you have here. So, and once you have this, there's only a couple of changes that you actually need to make. But what I did want to show you is I'm going to come out here. Those of you that know Power BI, you'll know this is your visualization or creating reports. This is where you want to do data models. And right here is where you create your relationships. So I'm going to go ahead and create your relationships. And notice, without having to do anything, I have automatically created these, the system has automatically created these relationships for your analyst because the system already knows, because of the way it's structured in the data warehouse, what goes with what. And you can see down here the dimensions down the middle. You can see down here that they all have a 1, and you can see that all of these have an asterisk. Now, all of these that have solid lines have been automatically connected with a one data source to many, and that's exactly what you want because there's a single dimension. So think of that as a single customer, single account number, single currency. Here we have single entity, and over here you have many, you have the transactions. So a customer could have 50, 100, 200 different transactions, but it's always the same customer. And it's the same customer that's going back over here to your various revenue entries. So here again, it automatically did this, nothing that I had to do. There's going to be one dashed entry, which means it's not linked up. We could easily delete this, but it's trying to link this table with this table, and you don't need to do that directly anymore because now you have a dimension that's doing it. So let's come on out here, and we're going to go ahead and just work here to create a quick scenario so you can see how this all fits together. The first thing that I would do is I come out here before the analyst had their hands on this, I would see this dim 0 here. Well, this is one of the pieces that that does need to be relabeled. It doesn't have to be. So I'm just going to click this and I'm going to hit rename. And this was our department. Oops, I left my caps on. Let's make it nice and neat. So now I have my department. So typically when I'm doing data, it's making the changes. Typically when I'm doing data and I don't know the data I'm looking for, I always start out with kind of a grid. So that's the approach that I took here. I'm going to go ahead, take the grid, and then I'm going to start to look at my data. So what would I like in this demo? So I'm going to go ahead up here and I'm going to choose my customer. And I'm going to go ahead and say, well, I want my customer name. I could choose their ID number, things like this, but since this is for end users, nobody cares what the ID number is, or most people don't, and they only care about what your customer name is. So I'm going to go ahead and stay there. I'm going to go ahead and close this up because it's the only thing I want from here. Now we know that all of these elements here are linked to both of these. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come out here and I'm going to scroll down until I find what I want. And down here I can see here's my measures that are here with these little sum signs in front of them. And so I know that that's what the element I'm looking for. So I'm going to go ahead and click the sales piece because I want the sales values here. Okay, so it already populated that, and that's all I want out of there. But to show how these are linked together, I want to come out here and say, all right, I want my AR balances. All right, so now I have my customer, I have my sales, and I have my AR balances. I'll go ahead and close that up. And you can see quickly that I have customers. Down at the bottom here, I have some totals. And I have all the customers here. And we know that, you know, we can go ahead and make it prettier and expand it out here and do these things. I brought some of the data in with decimal places and some without, just because I wanted to show you the differences that you could have in the system. And so I left them that way to show the differences. Now with this, I also wanted to point out that this is all the data that's in the data warehouse. So from here you have to start to, I'm going to call slice your data up. And you could do things over here, do some filters, but I'm going to go ahead and show it a little bit different way. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put a slicer out here that allows you to pick data. And I'm going to do this for several reasons because I want to show you how all of these elements can interact with one another. All right, so the first thing I want to do is I'm going to set up a time scenario. And I'm going to go ahead with that and I'm going to choose the fiscal period. You'll notice here that we have a month, a year and a month. Now it's going to go ahead and we can limit this down. I'm not going to do this in this exercise, but it's first going to put all of your dates out there. But what I am going to do is I am going to click the right button and I am going to sort it by period and flip it around. The one thing that I do know in this system is I do know that we only have accounts receivable data in 2015-09. So I'm going to go ahead and choose that period. But what I'm also going to do is I'm going to come out here and say that I want to take my selectors and I'm going to have the ability to select everything. And I'm going to have it so I can choose a single period at a time. Or multiple periods at a time. But what I'm also going to be able to do here is I want to come out here and I'm going to change this a little bit. I'm going to make the numbers a little bit bigger so you can see them a little bit easier. And then I'm going to go ahead and close this slicer down. So the other thing I wanted to do with this is I want to add a second slicer. What I want to put in this slicer is I want to come out here and I'm going to create an entity slicer. And what I want to do is I want to have the description here as well. And I'm going to go ahead with this slicer and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go ahead and make it so I can select multiples. I'm going to make it so the singles are off and I can select all. And I'm going to go ahead here as well. And I'm going to increase the size of it so you guys can see it a little bit better. All right, so now that I've done that, you're able to see the customer values, and you're able to start to choose and select the data that you want to see. If I choose just Canada, I'm going to see Canada values. If I choose corporate or Asia, I'm going to see both Asia and Canada until I check Canada. And if I select all, I'm going to see everything that's out there. So that goes ahead and it gets us a start on creating some of the visualizations. And as you can see, that didn't take me very long to pull out the customer list and to be able to go ahead and start to filter it down. So that all happened pretty quickly. So now I'm going to click out of that and I'm going to add one more visualization to this. And that visualization that I have here is I'm going to go ahead and start with a pie chart. And I'm going to go ahead with the pie chart, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use that same entity and click on that. And I'm going to go ahead and in that entity, I'm going to close this down. I'm going to go ahead back to the transaction piece here, and I'm going to be able to come down here, and I'm going to choose sales. So as you can see now, I've started to create other kind of visualizations. And those other visualizations, in this case, is a pie chart. Now the nice part about now that you have the data and you're starting to build these out, you can take a look and say, does a pie chart make sense? Well, let's try some other visualizations. And as long as you stay on this grid, it'll allow you to flip over and choose bar charts, line charts, whatever you have up here, and say which one makes the most sense. Well, that one doesn't look so good. How about this one? And maybe you decide to use a line because when you come out here, you can see what the values are as well. Or maybe you want to do a pie chart and say, well, you know, that really looks the best. And that allows you to do the same thing as well. Take a look at the total sales, and that would because you're using the same slices over here, that's how it relates to this as well. It's the same thing. Now, with this, we could add different things on here like currencies, and we could do it in source currencies and limit it to only seeing Asia that way, or Canada. With this, I'm using US dollars as if they were converted and across all of these areas, and I had some of that data preset. So with that, we've taken 25 minutes, and we've been able to basically go through and show you how to use that data, start to create visualizations, start to make it look a little bit pretty, and to be able to start to look at your data. Now here again, I'm going to show you a couple of finished out ones that I've been working on. And so those pieces of data that I'll be looking at will be things that one of them I created on the airplane in about 2 hours on my way to Minneapolis, and from where I live, and a couple of the other ones I created as well in just a matter of a couple hours knowing the data. But as you can see out here, for those of you that know how to use Power BI, you can see that, or don't know how, you can see here whenever you're in one of these visualizations, it's telling you where the data comes from. And here again, this is the important one because it allows you to pull it from 2 completely different data sources that the data was created from. All right, so I'm going to go down here now, and I'm going to jump from what we just created to a more polished, finished model that I had done. Here again, this one I created, and it was done with less dimensions, but the same dimensions from the warehouse, and 1 fact set. and I was able to create a food and beverage, entertainment. This one was done here for the entertainment group or the hospitality group, a revenue per guest, average room rate per day, and it's very, very clean looking and being able to look at your data. And you can see down here daily, table win percentages. So whatever data that you want to put out here, you can go ahead and put that data out here and have it in your data warehouse. Again, the important piece about the data warehouse is you're able to have this data, the same data across the accountants, whether they're doing budgets and actuals, whether you're doing comparatives, whether you're doing consolidations. It's all the same data across all the analysts and across anybody that's doing any of these visualizations. Next, I'm going to go ahead and jump out to another one that I've created. This one here is actually the one that I had done when I was on the airplane. And here again, I have more dimensions and additional fact set. I have a secondary fact set that I just added that's completely different data altogether. I wanted to show you that you could do that. But over here on this page, I also have the same sort of a thing. I have an accounts receivable, but I also have a revenue and cost per test. I have outpatient billings. This one is done for more of a clinical model. So I have inpatient service, outpatient. Again, you have what the numbers would be. Accounts receivable, the amount of tests per patient, revenue, and you can display these any way you want. But this is an extremely clean look and very visual, and again created from the data warehouse, looking exactly the same as what you saw earlier. Now I did have one data source that's kind of neat that completely is different, and I put that on another dashboard, and here it's on the sheet. But I went out and got some completely different data, so I wanted to show you that you can bring other sources in. This is a visual from the city of New York. And here again, this could be, it doesn't have to just be this, it could be sales, it could be where your sales are coming from or anything. But my sales weren't dispersed enough that it would give or they were too widely dispersed. I needed the whole map to do this. But here again, this was from the city of New York, and it's giving accidents, injury accidents, and you can see by the bubbles, here again we have one, this is 4 people were injured, 1, and all of the reasons. So here again, data coming in, data that you don't have to map, but here again, data that you are mapping using the data warehouse. So you can still use single source data, you can use multiple source data, and still create your resolutions and your various items across the way, analysis, and disperse them out to the people that need them. So with that, I guess that actually does conclude my webinar here today. I'm not used to talking without having interruptions, so this one a little bit quicker than I had anticipated, and hopefully it was helpful. Ashley, if you're there listening and you could open this up to the questions, question and answer period, I'd love to get some comments back.
Great, thank you, Steve. We did get one question. Is Power BI connecting to the Solver's DW or the source system?
The Solver's data warehouse.
Solver's data warehouse or the source?
Solver's DW. So it would be Solver's DW on the what you're calling that from your system. So yes.
Great. And that looks like that was the only question. If people on the line have anything that you'd like Steve to answer right now, please feel free to submit your question in the question box. Otherwise, there will be a follow-up email that you can ask us any questions you might have later as well.
And if you need to contact me, I put my contact information up here on the slide. You're more than willing to send me an email, and or just call one of the numbers, and I'll be glad to answer any questions that you have, or let you know how you can get started.
Thanks. And we actually just got another question. Could you talk about what time is saved doing with Solver versus doing on our own?
Well, if you go ahead and utilize the data warehouse, the two that I showed you today actually run in about 5 minutes and self-map. Typically, if you're using multiple data sources and things like that, it doesn't take an extra lot of time to do that. You just choose all of the, as you saw earlier, you choose all those data elements and it will self-map itself as it brings it over. So you're talking about 5, maybe 10 minutes to do it the very first time, maybe 15 depending on how you want to slice the data. I've spent on those same sort of models anywhere from 1 to 2 hours up to 2 days, depending on what the data looks like and the source data looks like. So it can save an enormous amount of time. Here again, you're planning ahead of time, you're putting it into the data warehouse and it's lining up. The first time typically takes a little bit longer for us, but here again, if we typically can bring in AP, AR, general ledger information, sales information from a database like GP, within about an 8-hour period of time. So we can bring that data to the warehouse, and then it's all mapped, ready to go. Just hooking up the sources to Power BI, and away you go. And then you just keep adding data as you go. You've got the basic structure there, and a lot of that you can do yourselves. And if you can't, we'll always help you. But I would say on the average, you can save anywhere from 2 to 4 hours up to 2 days, depending on what all your data sources and how you're looking at that. And that's just a fairly good estimate. So.
Thank you. And we got a few more questions that came in. How frequently does the data refresh from Solver's data warehouse?
Typically, most customers refresh it at least once a day. Typically, in a typical deployment, we'll give some of the power users or the controller or whoever's the head of it, call it an on-demand button. So if need be, that data can be updated whenever you need it to be. Some customers update every 10 or 15 minutes. I had one that had displays out. I think they were doing some sort of a sales display. They had it up as you entered the lunchroom, and it automatically updated every time that the data updated, and they were updating it, I think, every 15 or 30 minutes, if memory serves me right. So you can get fairly granular as quickly as you want to bring in your data. But most people settle with it once a day, because source systems are only posting once a day and things like that. So.
Great. The next question, can this be done using dashboards in BI360?
Absolutely, yes. You can do that. You can do that with dashboards in BI360 as well. I just wanted to give some alternatives here. They would both be working off the same thing. I'm going to call the dashboards in BI360 as Analytics Light and Power BI is Analytics Heavy. They have, I'm going to call it a gray area in the middle where they both do the same thing. So with what your needs are, absolutely you can do this with the BI360 dataware or portal as well.
Okay, we have a two-part question. Today you showed loading in the data instead of direct query. Would you recommend to use the direct query after you're finished building the dashboards? And are there any limitations in the functions regarding using direct query instead of offline regarding adding function columns?
Here again, those are good questions. The best way to answer it is I hate to answer that without knowing your setup, because in some cases I'm going to say that the import is the best way to go. In other cases, I'll say that the direct is better to go, in the long run. But with that, either answer could be correct depending on how you're configured. I have some customers where that direct just won't work in the long term, so it's better to do as an import. But here again, that would be that would be a question based off of talking to your IT department or something to see how you're using all of this.
Thanks, and that looks like that's it for questions. if we do have any more, like we said, you can just shoot us an email after we send the follow-up with the recording if you have any more questions for Steve. But thank you all for joining today. And thank you, Steve, for giving us a great overview of Solver BI360's data warehouse and Power BI. We appreciate it.
All right, thanks everybody for joining.
Thank you.